So basically, in this session, we'll be dealing with the practical demonstration. So we'll be dealing mainly with the practical aspects of various vaccines that are important for us, right? So there are basically 4 types of vaccines. We have the live vaccines, the killed vaccines, the toxoid vaccines, and the subunit vaccines. Okay. We all know that the live vaccines include BCG, OPV, measles, MMR, that is the measles, mumps, rubella, or the MR vaccine also, the yellow fever, live Japanese encephalitis vaccine, live hepatitis A, and varicella. The killed vaccines include the injectable poliovirus vaccine, pertussis vaccine, inactivated rabies vaccine, and inactivated Japanese encephalitis vaccine. The toxoid vaccines include the diphtheria and the tetanus toxoids. The subunit vaccines are the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, the pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccine, the human papillomavirus vaccine, VI typhoid vaccine, and the HIV vaccines. So these are basically some of the examples of different types of vaccines that are currently available. Now, the latest national immunization schedule is very important for you to know. So we have, at birth, we have BCG, the bivalent OPV vaccine, the 0 dose, the hepatitis B vaccine, 0 dose. Okay. At 6 weeks, you have again the bivalent OPV 1, Penta 1, rotavirus 1, fractional IPV 1, and pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, the first dose, right? At 10 weeks, we have bivalent OPV 2, pentavalent 2, and rotavirus 2. The fractional IPV is actually given at 6 weeks and 14 weeks. Same is true for the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. As per the national immunization schedule, it is given as 6 weeks and 14 weeks, okay? Followed by at 9 months. So at 9 months, you're supposed to give the measles rubella vaccine or the MR vaccine, the Japanese encephalitis vaccine in the endemic areas, and the third dose of the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, as you can see, right? 16 to 24 months, we are going to give the DPT booster, the bivalent OPV booster, okay? The Japanese encephalitis, if it is an endemic area, you're going to give that, and the second dose of the MR vaccine. 5 to 6 months, again, another dose of DPT booster. So previously it was a tetanus toxoid here, but now we give DPT. And at around 10 years also, another dose of DT is usually recommended. Now, this HPV vaccine is still not a part of national immunization schedule, right? But it is envisaged to be included. Now, what do you mean by a fully immunized child and a completely immunized child? So who can tell me what do we mean by a fully immunized child? Which child is called a fully immunized child? Yes, waiting for your answers. Which child is called a fully immunized child? So fully immunized child, what do you mean by fully immunized child? Okay, so very good, Swati. So Swati says fully till 1 year and completely till 2 years, right? So we call a child fully immunized. He has completely taken all the vaccines which are recommended before the age of 1 year, right? So that includes 3 doses of OPV, 3 doses of rotavirus, 3 doses of pentavalent vaccine, 3 doses of pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, 2 doses of fractional IPV, the first dose of MR vaccine, and the first dose of Japanese encephalitis vaccine, right? And we call it complete immunization if before the age of 2 years the child has received, in addition to the vaccines that we mentioned in the age group before 1 year, along with that the MR vaccine second dose, the DPT booster, PV booster, the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine booster, and encephalitis second dose. So if all these have been received, then we say that the child is completely immunized, right? Now, what is important is the route of administration of various vaccines. We know only 2 vaccines are given intradermal currently in our immunization schedule. They are BCG and IPV, fractional IPV basically, right? Now, you would notice that most of the vaccines are given intramuscularly, except the live vaccines, which are given by subcutaneous. Okay, BCG, of course, it is intradermal. MR, varicella, live hepatitis A, all of them are given by measles, MMR, subcutaneous. while DPT, Hib, hepatitis B, pneumococcal, inactivated hepatitis A, the pentavalent vaccine, inactivated influenza vaccine, typhoid, pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccine, all of them are given by the intramuscular route. And the oral vaccines, of course, we know are the OPV and the rotavirus. So you should be aware of the routes of administration of different vaccines, right? So orally, we know oral polio vaccine, rotavirus vaccine, and vitamin A, which is usually the first dose given along with the measles vaccine at 9 months of age. Okay, and intradermally, we know BCG is given in the left upper arm, and subcutaneously, Japanese encephalitis vaccine may be given at this site. The right arm, usually what is recommended is to give intradermal IPV, measles, and MR vaccine subcutaneous. The right thigh pneumococcal vaccine is usually recommended, okay, and intramuscularly, so anterolateral aspect of the right thigh. While on the left thigh, it is recommended to give the hepatitis B bird dose, the pentavalent vaccines, and the DPT booster. So why are vaccines administered at specific sites on the body? Anyone would like to answer? So why we are telling that, BCG should be given in the left upper arm, and the pneumococcal vaccine should be given right side anterolateral aspect of the thigh. So why are vaccines administered at specific sites on the body? Any idea? Okay. So Pushkal says in case they lose their card, doctor can know. Swati says uniformity of the protocol. Okay. Shreya says to identify in case mother doesn't remember. Okay, so the parents are remembering. Pariniti says universal convention so that we can know. You can ask parents aside and come to know which vaccine administered, right? So all of you are correct. So basically, these are the reasons why the vaccines are administered at specific sites on the body to maintain uniformity and for helping you or anyone in checking that the vaccine was given, even though the parents might not remember the exact name of the vaccine, right? Like the BCG on the left upper arm. So, checking for BCG scar is a very integral part of examining a child. Okay. Now, what are the general principles that we follow during immunization? So any number of vaccines, live or inactivated, may be given on the same day, maintaining a gap of 5 centimeter between different vaccines. Okay. And inactivated vaccines can be given at any time in relation to any other live or inactivated vaccines. Okay. But two or more live vaccines, either they should be given on the same day or there should be a gap of at least 4 weeks between them. Okay, it's not like one live vaccine you gave today and suppose another vaccine which was supposed to be given is not available today, it is available after 4-5 days. You cannot give it after 4-5 days. So either you give all the live vaccines which are due on the same day or you give them at an interval of at least 4 weeks. Okay. So now coming to the individual vaccines one by one. So what happens in your Viva tray? The vaccines are kept and these are actual pictures of those vaccines which are taken from your Viva tray. So you will be asked to hold a vaccine vial and you may be asked some questions related to it. So what you can see here is a BCG vaccine and you can see that the BCG vaccine live attenuated Bacillus calmette-guerin vaccine is written, okay, and reconstitution is written. So it is a freeze-dried lyophilized vaccine which needs to be reconstituted. It is in a dark brown or amber colored vial. That means it is probably light sensitive, right? And the dose is also written. For infants up to 1 month, it is 0.05 ml. For children over 1 month and adults, it would be 0.1 ml, right? So why do you think are we giving lesser dose in infants up to 1 month of age here? So we are telling in infants up to age 0.05 ml. Children over 1 month, adults, it is 0.1 ml. So why do you think the dose is in infants? Why do you think the dose is lesser in infant? All right. Is less body. Pushkal says thin skin. Right. So the infants have got really thin skin and lesser subcutaneous tissue. So we are giving intradermal. If you give a so it might go subcutaneous. Happens when you're giving a large volume subcutaneous. It might not actually remain intradermal if you're giving a large volume. And moreover, in various studies, it has been seen that even 0.05 ml is as immunogenic as 0.1 ml, okay, in these small babies. So we use a dose of 0.05 ml in them, right? So what are the other things that we need to know about BCG vaccine? The strains used are usually the Copenhagen, that is the Danish 1331, and the Pasteur strains. It is a light sensitive vaccine, and we said it contains at least zero point 0.1 to 0.4 million live viable bacilli. So it is a live attenuated vaccine, right? And normal saline is to be used as diluent. So you have to ensure that normal saline is used as diluent and not distilled water. So for different kinds of vaccines, different diluents are there, and it is clearly mentioned which vaccine has which diluent is to be used for which vaccine. Okay. So normal saline is a diluent here, and BCG is a vaccine that induces mainly cell-mediated immunity, right? For the prevention of mediated protective efficacy is around 70 TB. For pulmonary. So it is meningeal, and 50%, even if a child has received BCG vaccine, it will not protect the child, but it will prevent severe, it will prevent the protection. And the are BCG adenitis or lymphadenitis. Disseminated BCG infection can occur. This and then features suggestive of infection of the local site, and there can be osteitis or bone inflammation. So these are some of the effects. And this we already discussed. Why do we give a dose of 0.05 ml to newborns? So this is because the skin of newborns is thin, and an intradermal injection of 0.1 ml may break the skin or penetrate into the deeper tissue and cause local abscess and enlarged axillary lymph nodes. Moreover, as we mentioned, that the dose of 0.05 ml is sufficient to elicit adequate protection, right? So that is why we use a dose of 0.05 ml. Now, apart from that, you also need to know that BCG scar formation, okay, is a normal phenomenon. So sometimes the mothers can come and say that, an ulcer has formed at the BCG site 1.5 months later. So what do you need to do? So you will reassure them that it is a normal phenomenon that after BCG, a papule form and around has received, okay. So what if a baby has received BCG, but the baby has not got a BCG scar? Then it is recommended you need not repeat it, okay? It is not recommended to repeat BCG injection if it has been given, okay? Now, which vaccine is this? You can see this is the polio vaccine. This is the oral polio vaccine. So you can see an attachment here attached using which you can give 2 drops of polio vaccine. So this again is a live attenuated vaccine. And previously, trivalent polio vaccines were used, which has the strains 1, 2, and 3. But currently, the strain 2 is no longer, it has been eliminated. It is not important for us. So currently, we are using the bivalent polio vaccine, which has strains 1 and 3. Okay, type 1 and type 3 are there. So bivalent polio vaccine. And what is this square in a circle that you see here? What is this label on this vaccine that you see here? Yes, who can tell me? What is it? Very good. Pushkal, Swati, Shiveha, Pariniti, Pragya. Yes, it is a VVM or vaccine vial monitor. So basically, this is something that tells you whether the cold chain for this vaccine vial has been maintained properly or not. Okay. So this is a heat sensitive substance that is there on the label that indicates cumulative heat exposure. All right. So if the color of the square is darker than the outside circle that you see here, then you cannot use this vial. Okay, this vaccine inside this must have suffered heat damage, and you should not use this vaccine even if the expiry date has not been reached. All right. Okay. So polio vaccine, we know the oral polio vaccine or Sabin is the live vaccine, while the injectable polio vaccine or Salk is the killed vaccine. You can remember in the name Salk a K comes, so killed vaccine, right? And this is the vaccine vial monitor that we were talking about, which has an outside circle and an inside square in it. Okay, and it can have various colors like this. So if the inside square is lighter in color as compared to the outside circle that you see in the first two vials here, then you can use this vaccine. Okay, but if the color of the inside square is same or darker than the outside circle, you cannot use this vaccine. Okay, this vaccine needs to be discarded even if the expiry date has not reached. Okay, so the recommendations for polio vaccine. So since February 2014, the WHO no longer recommends an OPV only schedule. Okay, and now the IPV is also an integral part of the national immunization schedule. It will protect from the wild polio virus as well as polio caused by CVDP. So the vaccine-derived polio viruses also. So WHO has now recommended that all children should move from a OPV only schedule to a schedule which has OPV with along with at least one dose of IPV. So that is why we saw in our national immunization schedule. Now we have two fractional doses of IPV along with OPV, right? And OPV2 has been globally discontinued since 2016. So that is why we saw that currently we are using the bivalent polio vaccine, which has got the strains 1 and 3. Right? So currently the bivalent polio vaccine is used and wild type OPV2 has already been eradicated. Okay, and most cases of VDPV are or have been due to OPV2. So that is why we no longer want to use it. Moreover, if giving an additional strain would interfere with the immunogenicity of the other strains. So vaccination with type 2 will inhibit or will interfere with the take of OPV 1 and 3, right? So that is why we do not recommend OPV 2. So what about vaccine-associated paralytic poliomyelitis or VAP? What do you mean by VAP? So the case definition of VAP is basically those cases of AFP which have residual weakness 60 days after the onset of paralysis. Okay. So cases of AFP which have residual weakness 60 days after onset of paralysis and from whose stool samples vaccine-related poliovirus but no wild poliovirus is isolated. Okay. So these are the cases of VAP from which vaccine-related poliovirus have been isolated, and they are the cases of AFP. Okay, and this occurs due to loss of attenuating mutations and reversion to neurovirulence during replication of vaccine virus in the gut. Type 3 has been most often associated with VAP. Okay, and you must also have heard in your PSM there is something known as VDPV or vaccine-derived polioviruses, which arise due to mutation and recombination of the polioviruses in the human gut, and they are around 1 to 15% divergent or different from the parent vaccine virus. Now, which vaccine is this? You can see it is a vaccine which has diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccine adsorbed. Okay. For intramuscular use only it is written, so it is a DTP vaccine in short, and it is written each dose of 0.5 ml contains diphtheria toxoid, which is greater than equal to 30 international units, tetanus toxoid greater than equal to 60 international units, and pertussis greater than equal to 4 international units. In addition, this vaccine also has aluminum phosphate and thiomersal, which is a preservative, right? And this is a freeze sensitive vaccine, okay, cold sensitive vaccine. So that is why it is written do not freeze and discard the vaccine if frozen. Okay. So the dose is 0.5 ml for intramuscular use. Now DPT is effective. The effectiveness of the DPT vaccine against diphtheria and tetanus of 3 doses is more than 95%. But the effectiveness against pertussis is not so high. Okay. And most of the adverse effects of the DPT vaccine are usually due to the pertussis component. Okay. Serious adverse effects of DTP vaccine include persistent crying, which is the most common serious adverse effect, fever with a temperature of more than 40.5 degrees. There's something known as hypotonic hyporesponsive episodes, seizures, and encephalopathy. Catch-up vaccination of, if a child has not received DPT vaccine during his, as recommended in the immunization schedule, then if the child comes at an age of less than 7 years, what is recommended is you give the DTP vaccine, either the whole cell or acellular, whatever is available, at 0, 1, and 6 months. But if the child comes beyond 7 years of age, then we do not use this DTP vaccine because there are more chances of toxicity because of it. So you will be using Tdap vaccine. For the first dose, we use Tdap, where you have a capital T, small d, and small p. And while for the subsequent doses, you use a TD vaccine. So at 0, 1, and 6 weeks, you are going to give Tdap, followed by TD and TD. Okay. So that is the catch-up schedule recommended for children who present beyond 7 years of age, and even for adolescents and adults as well. Now, which vaccine is this? Can you read up and tell me what vaccine is this? So these are vaccines. So the first one is a vaccine which has diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, and Haemophilus influenzae type B. So it has 4 antigens here. So it is a quadrivalent vaccine. And in the second vaccine that you see here, there is diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenzae type B. So there are 5 different illnesses against which this vaccine is protecting. They are diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenzae. So this is called a pentavalent vaccine. Okay. So nowadays, this pentavalent vaccine is a part of our national immunization schedule. Okay. Now this is a type of combination vaccine where multiple different antigens have been combined together into one single injection. Now, what are the advantages of these combination vaccines like pentavalent? One is the child will need fewer injections. Otherwise, for DPT, you would have given 1 injection, for hepatitis B, 1 injection, for Hib, 1 injection. So instead of 3 injections, the baby is receiving only 1 injection. So fewer injections are there. Reduce burden on cold chain, because instead of, 3 times the number of vials, you have to store lesser number of vials. Reduced requirement of needles and syringes would also make it more cost effective. And of course, easier record keeping would be there. But the concerns include the stability of the product. Okay, there might be some interference, but already studies have been taken and they've been found to be extremely safe and stable. Only then we are using this. And there is a theoretical possibility of immune interference between various antigens causing suboptimal immunogenicity. And the cost of combination vaccines, of course, might be higher than the individual vaccines. So these are the concerns with combination vaccines like the pentavalent vaccine. Now, which vaccines do you see here? So the first vaccine here that you see is the measles vaccine, right? And you can see it is a live attenuated vaccine. It is already written here. Then the next vaccine that you see is a measles and rubella vaccine, or the MR vaccine. Okay. And you can see the route is subcutaneous and the dose is 0.5 ml. And the next vaccine that you see here is the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, which is again a live attenuated vaccine, a freeze-dried vaccine. So it needs to be reconstituted. And again, it is a dark colored vial. In a dark colored vial, that means it is also light sensitive. And you can see the strain of measles that has been used here is the Edmonston Zagreb strain. Okay. So much information you can get looking at the vaccine vial that is given to you. Okay. So a little bit about the measles, MR, and the MMR vaccines. So they are live attenuated vaccines, and the Edmonston Zagreb strain is used for the measles. The diluent here is distilled water. Unlike, the BCG vaccine where we use normal saline as diluent, here the diluent is distilled water. The adverse reactions possible to this vaccine are local pain, tenderness, mild measles-like illness, and thrombocytopenic purpura is also possible. Okay. Moving ahead, which vaccine is this? So as you can read up, this is a pre-filled syringe containing inactivated hepatitis A vaccine, okay, which comes by the name of Havrix, okay. So, hepatitis A nowadays, even live attenuated vaccine is also available. So you have inactivated hepatitis A vaccine also available, for which 2 doses are recommended to be given. And you also have a live attenuated hepatitis A vaccine, for which even single dose is good enough. Okay. So hepatitis A vaccine, as we mentioned, the live vaccine, the dosage schedule is single dose at 12 to 23 months age. For inactivated vaccine, it is recommended to give 2 doses 6 months apart intramuscularly. The first dose to be given at 12 months and the second dose is to be given at 18 months. So the recommendation by the Indian Academy of Pediatrics is that all healthy children should be given hepatitis A vaccine, especially those with high risk. Okay. Now moving on, this is the hepatitis B vaccine. So you can see it is a recombinant DNA vaccine and it comes in adult doses as well as pediatric doses. So the adult doses have 1 ml and pediatric doses have 0.5 ml. So it is for intramuscular use and you can see it is the HBsAg, the hepatitis B surface antigen produced in genetically engineered yeast, right? Now, what is the recommendation regarding hepatitis B vaccine in neonates to prevent vertical transmission of hepatitis B from the mother to the baby? Now, if the mother is hepatitis B positive, then what should you do? We should give hepatitis B immunoglobulin as well as hepatitis B vaccine within 12 hours of birth. Okay. If you do not have immunoglobulin, at least vaccine you should give within 12 hours of birth and immunoglobulin as soon as possible, as soon as it is available. Okay. And complete the vaccine series at 2nd and 6th month. Okay. Now, what if the hepatitis B surface antigen status is unknown or the mother is unknown? You do not have a report. Then again, you give hepatitis B vaccine within 12 hours and you send the report, the blood of the mother for testing for HBsAg. If the mother comes out to be negative, nothing else needs to be done. If the mother comes out to be positive, then administer hepatitis B immunoglobulin to the baby within 7 days of life to prevent vertical transmission or to prevent hepatitis B infection in the baby and complete vaccine series at 2nd and 6th month. Now, if the mother is HBsAg negative, then you have to give HBV, hepatitis B vaccine at birth and complete the vaccine series. And of course, you do not need a hepatitis B immunoglobulin in that case. Okay. Now, what is this? This is a pneumococcal polysaccharide conjugate vaccine or pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. Okay. And one dose is 0.5 ml, you can see, stored at 2 to 8 degrees, and you should ensure that the vaccine is not frozen. Okay. So pneumococcal vaccine, you have mainly 2 types of vaccines that are available. One is the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. So previously 7-valent pneumococcal vaccine was available, then 10-valent was available, and currently even 13-valent pneumococcal conjugate vaccine is available. And this vaccine is conjugated. So we are telling pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. So what is it conjugated to? So this vaccine has been conjugated to the diphtheria toxoid, okay? Cross-reactive material or CRM197 protein, okay? And this covers against these strains, 13 strains of pneumococcus or Streptococcus pneumoniae. And this being a conjugate vaccine can be given even at less than 2 years of age, and it produces a robust immune response as well as immune memory. On the other hand, the pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccine, even though it gives protection against 23 strains of pneumococcus, but it is a T-cell independent vaccine, okay, and it is poorly immunogenic below 2 years of age. So you can only give it in high-risk individuals beyond 2 years of age. And it also has low immune memory. It does not produce any reduction in the nasopharyngeal carriage. It does not provide herd immunity and gives only 70% efficacy against invasive disease. So currently, recently in our national immunization schedule, the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine has been incorporated and it is recommended to be given at 6 weeks, 14 weeks and 9 months. Okay. Moving ahead. So this is an example of the influenza vaccine. So you can see it is again a pre-filled syringe wherein you have the influenza vaccine. The influenza vaccine is recommended to be given annually, especially in the high-risk population. Because every year the strains of influenza vaccine will change depending on the strain which is prevalent in community at that time. Okay. So you have inactivated influenza vaccines, which are of three types: the whole virus, the split product, and the subunit surface antigen. It can be monovalent or trivalent or quadrivalent. And you have live attenuated influenza vaccine, which can be given to healthy non-pregnant individuals 2 to 49 years of age, and they are given as a nasal spray. Now, as we already mentioned, in whom these influenza vaccines are recommended, it is recommended in children with risk factors or wherein it is requested by the parents. And when should it be given? So in India, the illness, the influenza occurs all the year round, but it peaks from June to September. So it should be given as soon as a new vaccine is released in the market. So moving ahead, what vaccine is this? So you all can see that there is an oral dispenser attached here. So this is the rotavirus vaccine. Okay. So this is for oral administration, and you can see this is a live attenuated vaccine. Okay. So three types of oral live vaccines are available. So previously there was a vaccine available by the name of RotaShield, which used to cause, high incidence of intersusception. So that is why it is no longer used. So currently you have the rotavirus vaccines that are available are the monovalent vaccine that is called Rotarix, the pentavalent vaccine that is called Rotatec, and the Indian neonatal rotavirus live vaccine, which has been, prepared from a strain isolated from AIIMS New Delhi, the 1160 strain that comes by the name of Rotavac. And now the rotavirus vaccine is now a part of our national immunization schedule. Okay. The first dose of rotavirus vaccine should ideally be given between 6 to 15 weeks age. And previously it was said that for the last dose, the maximum age is 6 months for monovalent and 8 months for pentavalent vaccine. But as per the national immunization schedule, rotavirus catch-up immunization can be given till 1 year of age. Okay. And we mentioned that this is a vaccine that is associated with an increased risk of intersusception. Even though, the risk is much lesser. So previously the risk was much higher. With the RotaShield vaccine, the risk of interception was greater. Now the risk is much lower, but there still exists a fair risk of intersusception with the rotavirus vaccine. Okay. Now, which vaccine is this? So this you can see is a vaccine called TypeBar. So this is a VI capsular polysaccharide typhoid vaccine. Okay. So this is for intramuscular injection. So the VI capsular polysaccharide vaccine, again, because it is a polysaccharide vaccine, just like the pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccine, it is not immunogenic in children less than 2 years of age. And there is no immune memory. Okay, the efficacy is also only around 50 to 60%. So what is recommended is the first dose at greater than equal to 2 years with revaccination every 3 years. However, nowadays a newer typhoid vaccine is available, just like the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. You have the typhoid conjugate vaccine, which is available these days. And the overall efficacy is around 89%. And what is recommended is a single dose at 9 to 12 months. Okay, and you can give it up to 23 months, followed by a booster at 2 years of age. Now, which vaccine is this? This is a tetanus vaccine, right? So we all know about the tetanus prophylaxis following wound. So if it is a clean minor wound, then you need not give any immunoglobulins. If the immunization status of the person is unknown or has received less than 3 doses of tetanus containing vaccines like DPT, or if the person is immunodeficient, you give a dose of tetanus toxoid to that person. But if the person has already received greater than equal to 3 doses of tetanus containing vaccines, then a repeat dose of tetanus toxoid is not required. but it may be given if more than 10 years have elapsed since the last dose. Okay. Now, for all other wounds, that means dirty wounds and major wounds, large, deep wounds, for them, if the immunization status is unknown, again, you need to give tetanus toxoid as well as tetanus immunoglobulin also. But if the person has been immunized with greater than equal to 3 doses of, tetanus containing vaccines, then revaccination is not required unless more than 5 years have elapsed since the last dose. And in these immunized individuals, tetanus immunoglobulin is usually not required. Okay. Moving on to varicella vaccination. We know varicella is a live attenuated vaccine. Varicella vaccine is a live attenuated vaccine derived from the Oka strain. It is to be given in a dose of 0.5 ml subcutaneously, and 2 doses are recommended. The first one at around 15 months of age and second one around 4 to 6 years of age. Okay. And IAP, the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, recommends that varicella vaccination should be given to all healthy children with no prior history of varicella, with special emphasis to high-risk groups. Okay. And for post-exposure prophylaxis also you can use it. That means suppose a child has visited her aunt or someone who is suffering from chickenpox now, and but the child is unimmunized. So if you want to prevent severe varicella or severe chickenpox in that child, you can give, the varicella vaccine to the child preferably within 3 days of exposure and potentially up to 5 days of exposure. So this will lead to either no or less severe illness in that child. Okay. A little bit about the HPV or the human papilloma virus vaccine. There are two recombinant vaccines available, recombinant DNA vaccines, the quadrivalent and the bivalent vaccines. The quadrivalent vaccine or Gardasil is a mixture of L1 proteins of HPV serotypes 16, 18, 6, and 11, while the bivalent vaccine contains only the serotypes 16 and 18. And it provides 99 to 100% efficacy against vaccine type related genital warts, vaginal and vulvar intraepithelial neoplasia. The minimum age for HPV vaccination is 9 years. Okay, but the catch-up vaccination can be done in females at the age of 13 to 45 years if they are not previously vaccinated. A little bit about adverse effects of following immunization. We know there are 4 kinds of adverse effects. So they can either be vaccine reaction, which is an event caused by the vaccine, example VAP following OPV, or precipitated by the vaccine when given correctly, like febrile seizure following DPT vaccination. There can be a program error, that is an event caused by an error in vaccine preparation, handling, or administration. Example, if you keep the measles vaccine reconstituted for more than 4 hours and then use it, then there can be toxic shock syndrome due to improper reconstitution and storage of measles vaccine. There's something called injection reaction. These are events resulting from anxiety about or pain from the injection itself rather than the vaccine. Okay. So some children are so afraid of vaccines. So looking at the injection, they can have, syncope due to the pain of vaccination or injection site abscesses if they are there. Okay, or sciatic nerve damage if someone gives gluteal injection, though gluteal injections are no longer recommended for vaccination of any kind. Then there are some coincidental events. These are the events that happen after immunization, but they are not caused by the vaccine. Okay, it is a chance reaction. Example, association between immunization and SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Now we'll be discussing some practical case scenarios. So if a mother came inquiring that her baby had a vomiting episode after oral polio vaccination, should we repeat? What do you think? Should a repeat dose be given? Waiting for your answers. So Tdap and Td Pariniti asks, so Tdap is tetanus, small d is smaller dose of diphtheria, and AP is for acellular pertussis, smaller dose. So small d and small p have smaller doses of diphtheria and pertussis antigen than the capital T DPT. And TD again stands for tetanus and diphtheria, where small d is for smaller dose of diphtheria, which can be given even in adults. Okay. Yes, so waiting for your answers. A mother came inquiring that a baby had a vomiting episode after oral polio vaccination. Should we repeat the dose of vaccine? Yes, please answer so that I know that you all are awake. Should the dose be repeated? What do you think? Yes, what do you think? Should the dose be repeated? So Mukesh, Pariniti, Raghav, Shiveha, Nikita, Pragya feel that it should be repeated. So let's see. So basically, what should be done is, if a baby vomits up to 30 minutes after OPV, only then we repeat the dose, assuming that no absorption has taken place. But if beyond 30 minutes there is vomiting, enough vaccine will have been absorbed and the dose need not be repeated. Okay, moving ahead. If a child presented with mild features of upper respiratory tract infection, so cough and coryza and low-grade fever is there, should we defer vaccination? What do you think? Should we defer vaccination? Should we ask him to come on a later day? So Swati and Shreya feel no, Pragya feels yes, Nikita feels no, Tamanna feels no. So what should we do? So if only mild features of upper respiratory tract infection are there, we need not postpone the immunization. All immunizations need to be postponed only during serious illness, okay? Not for milder illnesses, right? If a child presents with large immunization, what to do? So if the vaccine was due on say 10th of April, but the parents got the child on say 10th of May, then what should you do? Should you restart immunization series? No. So no need to restart a vaccine series regardless of the time that has elapsed. The next immunizations can be given as per the schedule. Okay. As the parents of the child had to travel out of station, they vaccinated their child 6 days before the due date. What to do? So suppose the parents had to go out of station on 20th August and the vaccination was due on 28th August, but they gave it on 19th August. So it was due on 20th August, but they gave the vaccination on 19th August. So what to do? Yes, what do you think? What should we do if you have given the vaccination early? So Shivya and Shreya feel nothing needs to be done. So basically, what needs to be done in this case is that should be given 4 or less days from the minimum interval. That means, suppose the vaccination was due on 28th August. You can give it on 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. So you can give it from 25th to 27th August also. But if given before 24th August, you need to repeat it and that dose will not be counted. So doses should not be given 4 or less days from the minimum interval. If given 5 or more days from the minimum interval, that dose is not counted, right? A child comes with unknown immunization status to you, what to do? So if a child comes with unknown immunization status, mother says that, so you're asking the immunization history from the mother, and the mother says that I don't know whether the child has been immunized or not, what vaccines he has received or not received. So what to do? What should you do in this case? If a child comes with unknown immunization status, what to do? Okay, Shivaya says we can check for BCG scar, right? And Swati says give vaccines whose upper limit is still due, all right. Nikita says catch up based on age, okay. Anil Pragya says immunize him with all the age appropriate vaccines, okay. Pariniti says give according to age from beginning, all right. So if a child comes with unknown immunization status, you're right. Child should be considered and vaccinated accordingly, and all the vaccines appropriate to his age should be given. So age appropriate vaccination of the child should be done, all right. If a child who has never been vaccinated is brought in at 9 completed months but before 12 completed months of age, which vaccines can be given on to that child on the same day? So the child has come, okay, between say the child has come at 10 months of age and he has not received any vaccines till now. Then what vaccines you need to give to the child? Yes, waiting for your answers. So a 10-month-old unimmunized child comes to you for vaccination. What vaccines will you give to the child that day? What do you think? Yes. So we can give, okay, Shreya says OPV, BCG, MR. All right, anything else? Can we give to this 10-month-old? So Nikita feels BCG, team, OPV, OPV. Okay, right. So let us see what vaccines can we give to this 10-month-old child. So it is safe and effective to give. We can give BCG, we can give pentavalent vaccine, OPV, IPV, MR, and rotavirus vaccine, and pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. Japanese encephalitis only if it is an endemic area. Okay, and vitamin A. At the same time, we can give all vaccines to a 9 or 10-month-old child vaccinated. These vaccines, child who has never been vaccinated. There's no problem in giving all these vaccines together. If more than one injection has to be given in one limb, ensure that the distance between the two injection sites is at least 1 inch apart. Now, if a child who has never been vaccinated is brought immediately after completing 12 months of age, so say the child has been brought at 15 months of age. So an unimmunized child has come to you at months of age. What all vaccines will you give him now? So a 15-month-old unimmunized child comes, what all vaccines we can give? So this is again a very favorite question which will often be asked in your Viva tables. So an immunized child has come to you or different age groups, what vaccines to give? So Swati feels OPV, measles, vitamin A. All right. Pushkal feels OPV and MR. Shreya feels no BCG. Pragya feels no BCG and Penta. Right. So let us see which vaccine to this 15-month-old child who is unimmunized. So as per the national immunization schedule, we need not give BCG, hepatitis B, Rota, Penta, and IPV this child. All these vaccines are to be given only till 12 months of age according to the national immunization schedule. So we are left with OPV, measles, and if Japanese encephalitis, if endemic area is there, and vitamin E. So all these things should be given to this child. Okay, and the subsequent doses of DPT and OPV should be given at, and we will also administer the second dose of measles vaccine and a booster dose of DPT at recommended age. Right? To a child between 7 years of age who has never been vaccinated. So suppose a 6-year-old child comes to you, who is give to that 6-year-old child as per the national immunization schedule which is used currently. So which vaccines can a child 6-year-old who is unimmunized, which vaccines can we give to that child? Yes, anyone? So Swati and Pushkal feel DPT. Okay. So a 6-year-old child who has never been vaccinated, we can basically give DPT 1, 2, and 3 at 1 month intervals. And the booster dose of DPT can be given at a minimum of 6 months after administering DPT-3 up to the age of 7 years. Right? So these are the practical aspects of immunization that we need to remember. So thank you so much. So if you have any queries related to this, you can ask. I'll be happy to answer. And Holkar. So practically, isn't it difficult? Yes, Shiva, it is difficult to give so many vaccines on the same day, but we never know whether the child will turn up again or not for vaccination, so we must give. Okay. And mums has been removed for operational issues. Measles and rubella vaccine is now that is currently preferred. because mumps is also not as severe an illness as measles and rubella. And what if the dose is missed by 6 days? No problem. You can, if it is missed, you can always give it. There's no problem, but you should not give it more than 4 days early. Okay. So thank you so much.